Good morning, fourth graders at Cumberland Elementary School. Today is Monday, May 4th. Wow, it's already May 4th. We're back with the city of Ember today. Don't forget that on Dojo, everything was posted for you for reading, math, writing, science, and social studies. Make sure you check that out this week to take a look at what we recommended for you guys to be working on. All right, at the city of Ember, the last we read on Friday, Lena had gotten caught by the guards and brought to the mayor. And she had said the word hogwash because the mayor is telling her that, the city of Ember is dying and that, all the secret things that he's hoarding, it's okay for him to do that because, it doesn't matter really, but we know different. So he says on Friday, just you wait, right? Okay, so here we go. A misguided child such as yourself requires a forceful lesson. His short fingers gripped the arms of his chair. Perhaps, he said, your curiosity has led you to wonder about the prison room. What could it be like? Dark, cold, uncomfortable. He made the smile that Lena remembered from assignment day. His lips pulled away from his small teeth and his gray cheeks folded. You are going to have a chance to find out. You will become closely acquainted with the prison room, my dear. The guards will escort you there. Your accomplice, another known troublemaker, will join you as soon as he is located. The mayor turned to look for the bell. This was the moment when Lena had planned to make a dash for freedom. She thought she had a slim chance to succeed if she moved fast enough, but something happened in that instant that gave her a head start. The lights went out. There was no flicker this time, just sudden, complete darkness. It was fortunate that Lena had already planned her move and knew exactly which way to go. She leaped up, knocking over her chair, and with her arm she made a wide sweep and knocked over the table next to the chair as well. The furniture thumping to the floor, the teapot shattering, and the mayor's enraged shouts made a clamor that covered the sound of her footsteps as she dashed to the stairway door. Was it unlocked? She reached for the knob. Grunts and squeaks told her that the mayor was struggling to try to get up from his chair. She turned the knob and pulled, and the door sprang open. She closed the door behind her and leaped upward 2 steps at a time. Even in the pitch dark, she could climb stairs. In the room, the bell clanged and clanged and clanged, and the mayor bellowed. When she got to the first landing, she heard the guards shouting. There was a crash. Someone must have fallen over and toppled the chair. Where is she? Someone yelled. Must have run out the door. Did they know which door, she thought? She didn't hear footsteps behind her. If she could make it to the roof, and if from the roof she could jump to the roof of the prison room, and from there to the street, and then maybe she could escape. Her lungs were on fire now. Her breath was burning her throat, and she climbed without stopping. When she came to a stop, she burst through the door to the roof and ran. And that was exactly when the lights came back on. It was as if the blackout had been arranged especially for her. I am so lucky, she thought, so extremely lucky. Ahead of her was the clock tower. She went around to the other side of it. No dancing on the roof this time. A low wall ran along the edge of the building. Lena approached it cautiously and peered out over the swarm of people assembling in Harkin Square. Directly below her was the entrance of the gathering hall, and as she watched, 2 guards dashed out the door and down the steps. Good. They had gone the wrong way, she thought. They must think she'd escaped into the crowd. For the moment, she was safe. The clock in the tower began to chime. 3 great booms rang out. It was time for the singing to begin. Lena gazed down at the people of Ember, gathered to sing their songs. They stood so close together that she could see only faces, which were lifted up toward the sky, with the hard, bright light shining down on them. They were silent, waiting for the songmaster to appear at the gathering hall steps. There was a strange hush, as if the city were holding its breath. Of the whole Ember year, Lena thought, this hush before the singing was one of the most exciting moments. She remembered other years when she had stood with her parents, too short to see the songmaster's signal, too short to see anything but people's backs and legs, and waited for the first note to thunder out. She felt her heart move at that moment every year. The sound would rise in waves around her like water, almost as if it could lift her off the ground. Now suddenly, the moment came again. From hundreds of voices rose the first notes of the song of the city, deep and strong. She felt as if she had all the years before, a quivering inside of her as though a string under her ribs had been plucked, and a rush of joy and sadness mixed together. The deep, rumbling chords of the song filled Harkin Square. Lena felt that she might step off the edge of the building and walk across the air. It seemed so solid with sound. The song of the city was long. There were verses about streets of lights and walls of stone, about citizens with sturdy hearts, about stored abundance never ending. Not true, Lena thought. But at last the song of the city wound down to its end. The singers held the final note, which grew softer and softer, and then there was silence again. Lena looked out at the lighted streets spreading away in every direction, the streets she knew so well. She loved her city, worn out and crumbling though it was. She looked up at the clock. 10 minutes after 3. Doone would be getting ready to leave for the pipeworks. She didn't know whether he'd seen her being captured, and if he had, he would be wondering if she'd been locked into the prison room. He'd been wondering if he should try to rescue her, or if he should go down to the river by himself. She should be hurrying to join him, but a sadness held her back. Like a heavy stone in her chest, she bent her face into the palms of her hands and pressed hard against her closed eyes. How could she go away from Ember and leave Poppy behind? Because if she went, she must leave her behind. How could she take her on a journey of such danger? The song of the river startled her when it began, the men's voices low and rolling, swelling with power, and then the women's voices coming in above with a complicated melody that seemed to fight the current. Lena listened, unable to move. The song of the river made her uneasy, it always had, with its rolling, relentless rhythm. It seemed to urge her onward, saying, "Go down, go away, go now, hurry." The more she listened, the more she felt something like the motion of the river in her stomach, a churning, sickening feeling. Then came the song of darkness, the last of the 3 songs, and the one most filled with longing and majesty. The soul of Ember was in this song. Its tremendous chords held all the sorrow and all the strength of the people of the city. The song reached its climax. Darkness like an endless night, sang the hundreds of voices. So powerfully the air seemed to shiver. And at that moment, the lights once more went out. The voices faltered, but only for an instant. Then they rose again in the darkness, stronger even than before. Lena sang, too. She stood up and sang with all her might into the deep, solid blackness. The last notes echoed and faded into a terrible silence. Lena stood utterly still. Will it end like this, she thought, at the finish of the last song? She felt the cold stone of the clock tower behind her back, and she waited. Then an idea came to her that made her skin prickle. What if she were to shout into the silence right now? What if she were to say, "Listen, people, we found the way out of Ember. It's the river. We go on the river." She could announce the outstanding news just as she and Doone had planned to do. And then, what would happen? Would the guards rush to the roof and seize her? Would the people in the square think her news was just a child's wishful thinking? Or would they listen? Would they be saved? She could feel the words pushing upward into her throat, and she wanted so much to scream them. She took a deep breath and leaned forward. But before she could speak, a rumble of voices arose. Someone shouted, "Don't move!" And someone else shrieked. The rumble rose to a roar, and then cries flew into the darkness from everywhere. The crowd had erupted into panic. There was no hope of being heard now. Lena clutched the edge of the clock tower as if the tumult below might cause her to fall. She strained her eyes against the darkness, but without light, she could go nowhere. Lights, please come back on, she prayed. Please come back on. Then she saw something. At first, she thought her eyes were tricking her. She closed them tight and then reopened them very quickly. It was still there, a tiny point of light. And the light was moving. As she watched, it moved along slowly in a straight line, and then it turned and moved in a straight line again. Was it on River Road? She couldn't tell, but suddenly she knew. She knew what it was. It was Doone, with a candle. Doone going toward the pipeworks in the dark. She wanted to go too. She could feel it all through her, the urge to run and meet him and find the way out of Ember to this new place. She listened to the shouts and the wails of the terrified people in the square below. She thought of Mrs. Murdo down there in the dark, being bumped and pushed with her arms wrapped tightly around Poppy, trying to protect her. And all at once, everything seemed clear. Lena knew what she had to do. If only the lights would come back on. If only this was not the very last blackout in the history of Ember. Watching the tiny light following its steady course, she made a wish for the whole force of her heart and mind. And that's where we'll stop. See you tomorrow.